And between March and May of 2026, the concrete grid of Chicago became the backdrop for a staggering sequence of targeted assassinations. From fatal betrayals behind closed doors to brazen drive-by shootings in broad daylight, no territory was off limits. This is the timeline of a brutal 3-month stretch that shook the city's underground, leaving a trail of fallen figures, shattered alliances, and a haunting number of shooters who vanished into the night. This is why the story does not stop at the basic headlines. On TopTrendReportTV.com, the full case file goes deeper into the tracking, the Reddit threads, the rival reactions, and the raw digital context behind these 3 months of Chicago violence. On May 31st, 2026, a deadly shooting occurred on the south side in the Douglas neighborhood. At approximately 4:40 in the afternoon, 23-year-old Samuel Antonio Landingham Jr., known in the streets as Lil Sam, was standing outside on the 2600 block of South Dearborn Street. Lil Sam was a recognized member of the 757 Collective, specifically affiliated with the Rock Nation branch. The afternoon was abruptly interrupted when gunfire erupted, striking him in the chest and back. Emergency responders rushed him from the scene to the University of Chicago Medical Center in critical condition. Landingham, who was noted to reside on the 6800 block of South Dorchester Avenue, could not be saved and was ultimately pronounced dead. In the wake of his death, rival factions immediately took to social media to disrespect the slain 757 member. Taunts circulated referencing an alleged incident from exactly 1 year prior, where Lil Sam had miraculously survived a gunshot wound to the head. As detectives continue to investigate this fatal attack, no arrests have been made and the shooter remains at large. On May 20th, 2026, deadly violence struck the Austin neighborhood. At 6:26 in the evening, Chicago police officers responded to a call of shots fired on the 400 block of North Central Avenue. Upon arriving at the scene, which was located just steps away from his own neighborhood, officers discovered 34-year-old Henry Lawrence. Known in the streets as Louie, Lawrence was a recognized member of the CNR Collective. He had suffered a devastating gunshot wound to the chest. Emergency medical personnel rushed him to Mount Sinai Hospital in grave condition. Despite efforts to save his life, Lawrence was later pronounced dead. Authorities continue to investigate this fatal shooting. Detectives have not announced any arrests or named any suspects in connection with the murder of the CNR member, leaving yet another case open on the west side. On May 14, 2026, a calculated and brutal ambush unfolded on the southwest side. At approximately 6:15 in the morning, 19-year-old Anthony Sanchez, known in the streets as K5, was attempting to get into his vehicle on the 3900 block of West 86th Street. Sanchez was recognized by online community members as an established part of the 48th Side Collective, specifically affiliated with the Pullman gang faction. The early morning quiet was suddenly shattered when a blue car pulled up to his location. A group of men quickly exited the vehicle, closed in on Sanchez, and opened fire without warning. He was targeted and struck multiple times in the merciless barrage of bullets. The injuries he sustained were catastrophic, and Sanchez was tragically pronounced dead at the scene before he could even be transported to a hospital. The shooters quickly fled the area in their blue vehicle, leaving authorities searching for answers. As of now, no one is in custody, and Chicago police are continuing their investigation into the fatal morning attack. On May 9th, 2026, deadly violence struck the south side in the Englewood neighborhood. At approximately 4:50 in the afternoon, 35-year-old Antonio Clark, known in the streets as Teo, was standing on the sidewalk on the 5600 block of South Racine Avenue. Online community members quickly pointed out that this location was situated directly within his own territory, as Clark was a recognized member of the grimy gang collective. The late afternoon took a fatal turn when an unidentified individual approached him on foot and abruptly opened fire. Clark was caught entirely off guard and struck multiple times in the sudden attack. Emergency responders rushed Clark, who lived just a short distance away on the 5600 block of South Loomis Boulevard, to the University of Chicago Medical Center. Despite all life-saving measures, his injuries proved to be too severe and he was pronounced dead. Area 1 detectives are actively investigating the homicide, searching for the person who pulled the trigger in broad daylight. The shooter managed to escape the scene, and as of now, no arrests have been made. Just one day prior, on May 8, 2026, a sudden act of fatal violence struck the Lower West Side. At approximately 2:15 in the afternoon, 34-year-old Daniel Celestino Diaz, known in the streets as Pop ID, was out on a sidewalk on the 2200 block of West Cullerton Avenue. Online community members pointed out that this location fell directly within the territory of the Gunnicide Collective. Diaz himself was a recognized member of the Oaktown Collective, specifically affiliated with the 8 Boys faction. The afternoon took a deadly turn when someone abruptly opened fire. Diaz was caught in a barrage and struck multiple times by the gunfire. Emergency responders arrived at the scene and quickly transported Diaz, who lived just a short distance away on the 2100 block of West 19th Street, to Stroger Hospital. Despite all life-saving measures, his injuries proved to be too severe and he was tragically pronounced dead. Area 3 detectives are actively investigating the fatal daylight shooting. As of now, no arrests have been announced and the shooter remains on the run. On that exact same day, May 8, 2026, a massive and devastating barrage of gunfire erupted on the south side in the Greater Grand Crossing neighborhood. At approximately noon, 31-year-old Willie Wheeler, known heavily in the streets as Stain, was standing outside a liquor store near the intersection of 75th and Harvard, specifically on the 300 block of West 75th Street. Online community members noted that Stain was basically posted up on his block like it was 2012 again, as this location was well known to be directly within his own territory. Wheeler was a highly prominent and established member of the Wugga World collective, widely recognized by many as their biggest face. Notably, he had just recently come home after serving more than 10 years in jail. He was standing with a 40-year-old man and a 48-year-old man when a sedan abruptly pulled up to their location. Multiple shooters quickly exited the vehicle and unleashed an overwhelming storm of bullets on the group. The violence was catastrophic, with crime scene investigators later recovering over 50 shell casings from the area. Wheeler was heavily targeted and struck a staggering 24 times in the merciless attack. Emergency responders rushed Wheeler, who lived on the 11,700 block of South State Street, to St. Bernard Hospital. Tragically, his traumatic injuries were too severe and he was pronounced dead. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office officially ruled his death a homicide. The 40-year-old man was shot in the side and also taken to St. Bernard's Hospital, while the 48-year-old man was struck in the leg and transported to Advocate Christ Medical Center in Oak Lawn. Both surviving victims were listed in serious condition. The brazen daylight assassination was viewed as a massive loss for Wugga World. In the immediate aftermath, a tragic video showing the deadly crime scene began circulating online, while rival factions, specifically Tay City and RRG, took to social media to relentlessly mock and troll the fallen Wugga World member. Chicago police have reported no arrests, and the multiple shooters who orchestrated the deadly ambush remain free. That is why the full breakdown on TopTrendReportTV.com is essential for tracking these patterns. It separates what the news reports state from what the streets, the online communities, and the digital paper trail are actually showing side by side. 3 days prior to that, on May 5th, 2026, a deadly drive-by shooting claimed a life on the south side in the West Englewood neighborhood. At approximately 8:38 in the evening, 47-year-old Larry Wilson, known in the streets as Roy, was standing outside on the 1400 block of West 71st Street. Online community members recognized this area as the territory of the Ada Block 071 collective. Wilson himself was an established member of the Geno Gang collective, highly regarded as a respected moneymaker from the older generation. The evening calm was abruptly broken when a sport utility vehicle pulled up to his location. Without warning, someone from inside the vehicle opened fire on Wilson. After unleashing the deadly barrage, the shooter's vehicle quickly sped off, heading east on 71st Street. Wilson was struck multiple times, suffering critical gunshot wounds to the chest and abdomen. Emergency responders arrived and rushed him to the University of Chicago Medical Center in critical condition. Despite all medical efforts to save him, he was ultimately pronounced dead at the hospital. Chicago police are continuing to investigate the fatal drive-by shooting. The sport utility vehicle managed to flee the scene, and as of now, no one is in custody. On May 2nd, 2026, a sudden late-night attack claimed a life on the south side in the Greater Grand Crossing neighborhood. At 11:36 in the evening, 26-year-old Armani Norwood, known in the streets as Amari or Penny, had just stepped out of a fast food restaurant on the 100 block of East 71st Street. Online community members noted that this location was situated directly within the territory of the BVC collective. Norwood himself was a recognized member of the new Money 080 collective and was also known to be affiliated with Jet Gang. As he was walking out of the restaurant, Norwood noticed a gunman standing nearby. Moments later, gunfire erupted and he realized he had been shot in the chest. Despite being critically injured, he desperately tried to run away from the scene to escape the barrage, but collapsed just a short distance away. Emergency responders arrived and quickly transported him to the University of Chicago Medical Center. Despite efforts to save his life, his injuries proved to be too severe, and Norwood was tragically pronounced dead at the hospital. Area 1 detectives are actively investigating the fatal ambush. As of now, the standing gunman remains unidentified, and Chicago police have reported no arrests in connection with the murder. On April 26, 2026, a deadly shooting and subsequent vehicle crash claimed 2 lives in the West Pullman neighborhood. At approximately 10 p.m. in the evening, 20-year-old Trayvon McCurdy, known in the streets as Ski, was driving a black sedan near the 12,100 block of South Harvard Avenue, an area noted to be close to Otto Gang territory. McCurdy was a recognized member of the Duffel Gang collective, specifically affiliated with the AMG 130 faction. According to details shared online, McCurdy was desperately trying to reach a location known as the Gardens and was actively on the phone with his family when a sudden barrage of gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through the vehicle, striking McCurdy and his passenger, which caused the sedan to lose control and violently crash into a nearby tree. Emergency responders arrived to find both victims trapped inside the wreckage. The unidentified passenger was pronounced dead at the scene. McCurdy was quickly pulled from the driver's seat and rushed to Advocate Christ Hospital, where his injuries proved too severe and he was tragically pronounced dead. Area 2 detectives are actively investigating the double homicide. As of now, no arrests have been reported and the shooters remain unidentified. On April 19, 2026, a brazen daytime attack claimed a life on the west side in the West Garfield Park neighborhood. At approximately 4:15 in the afternoon, 30-year-old Jeffrey Harrison, known in the streets as Lil Jeffrey, was sitting on a porch on the 4400 block of West Monroe Street. Online community members noted that Harrison was relaxing directly within his own territory as he was a recognized member of the Fro Gang collective. The afternoon calm was abruptly shattered when an unidentified shooter opened fire, striking Harrison in the chest. Emergency responders rushed him to Mount Sinai Hospital in critical condition, but his injuries proved too severe and he was tragically pronounced dead. In the hours following his murder, rival factions, specifically members of the same collective, took to social media to disrespect the fallen Fro gang member. However, his collective quickly shut down the rumors, publicly stating that those specific rivals were not responsible for the fatal shooting. Chicago police are continuing to search for the actual gunman, and as of now, no arrests have been made. On April 17, 2026, a devastating and merciless ambush ripped through the west side in the West Garfield Park neighborhood, claiming 3 lives in a single brutal act of violence. At approximately 4:47 in the afternoon, a group of individuals was gathered near a sidewalk on the 4000 block of West Maypole Avenue. Among them were 32-year-old Reagan Williams, known as Kia, Lavelle Lee, known as Velly, and Kenneth Bell Jr., known in the streets as Wu. Online community members quickly identified all 3 victims as established affiliates of the B Gang collective, specifically tied to the Harlem Boys faction. The Friday afternoon calm was shattered when a vehicle suddenly pulled up to their location. At least 2 gunmen exited the car and unleashed a terrifying barrage of gunfire directly at the group before jumping back into their vehicle and fleeing the scene. The resulting violence was catastrophic. Williams was struck in the head and rushed to Stroger Hospital, where she was tragically pronounced dead. Both Lee and Bell suffered multiple gunshot wounds. One was pronounced dead amidst the bloody scene, while the other was transported to Mount Sinai Hospital, where he too ultimately succumbed to his injuries. A 4th victim, a 35-year-old man, was also caught in the gunfire and taken to Stroger Hospital in critical condition. The sheer brutality of the afternoon attack left families and the community reeling. Shay Jackson, a cousin of one of the fallen victims, publicly expressed her heartbreak, sharing that a responding officer had tried to turn her cousin over to save his life, but his injuries were simply too severe. She voiced a deep frustration over the relentless and heavily armed violence plaguing the streets. Area 4 detectives are actively investigating this tragic triple homicide. As of now, no arrests have been announced, and the multiple gunmen responsible for the massacre remain completely unidentified. On April 15, 2026, a volatile dispute culminated in a fatal officer-involved shooting on the south side in the Woodlawn neighborhood. Late that evening, Illinois State Police troopers responded to a domestic battery call that had reportedly initiated on Interstate 57. At approximately 10:50, the investigation led troopers into the city limits to the 6500 block of South Champlain Avenue. It was there that they located 24-year-old Jalen Carpenter. Online community members widely recognized Carpenter by his street name, EBK Cap, an established member of the Mixed Mob Collective. According to official statements, troopers encountered an armed Carpenter at the location. A physical struggle quickly ensued, during which state police discharged their weapons, striking him. Officers initiated medical aid until emergency personnel arrived and transported Carpenter to the University of Chicago Medical Center. Despite the efforts to save his life, he was ultimately pronounced dead. Authorities confirmed that a firearm was recovered from the scene, and body camera footage of the fatal encounter eventually surfaced online. In the devastating aftermath, his 51-year-old father, Stanley Carpenter, publicly mourned the loss. He described his son as a beautiful soul and a hard worker who was actively trying to get his life back on track so he could get an apartment and provide for his young son, who was set to turn 2 years old in July. Heartbroken, Stanley stated his belief that his son only carried a weapon for personal protection and expressed profound grief over the sudden violence that claimed his life. The Illinois State Police Division of Internal Investigation is continuing to examine the circumstances surrounding the deadly use of force that resulted in the death of the Mixed Mob affiliate. No state troopers were injured during the chaotic incident. On that exact same night, April 15, 2026, another sudden eruption of violence claimed a life on the south side, this time in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood. At approximately 9:16 in the evening, Reagan Johnson, known heavily in the streets as Rico, was sitting inside a vehicle on the 8700 block of South Union Avenue. While initial news reports inaccurately broadcasted the victim as a 44-year-old man, community members quickly clarified that Johnson was actually just 27 years old. Rico was a recognized member of the WAP Gang Collective, specifically affiliated with TTD and the East End faction. Online community members also noted that the street where he was parked fell within the territory known as Fintown. As Johnson sat in his car, two unidentified men who had reportedly been sitting on a nearby porch approached his vehicle on foot. A heated confrontation immediately broke out between them. The verbal argument rapidly escalated, and a deadly exchange of gunfire ensued when one of the men produced a weapon and opened fire. Johnson was critically targeted, suffering a devastating gunshot wound to the eye and multiple gunshot wounds to his arm. Immediately following the barrage, the two men fled the chaotic scene on foot into the night. Emergency responders from the Chicago Fire Department arrived and attempted to stabilize Johnson at the scene before rushing him to Christ Hospital. Tragically, his injuries proved fatal and he was pronounced dead. Area 2 detectives are actively investigating the late night shootout. The two men who approached his vehicle remain unidentified, and Chicago police have reported no arrests. On April 11, 2026, a brazen drive-by shooting in the suburban city of Oak Forest claimed a life on what was supposed to be a day of celebration. At approximately 4:47 in the afternoon, 30-year-old Latrell Williams, known heavily in the streets as Trigger or Trigger P, was stopped in his vehicle in the median lane at the intersection of 167th Street and Cicero Avenue. Williams was a prominent and established member of the 50 Strong Collective, specifically affiliated with the Del World faction. Tragically, community members noted that the fatal attack unfolded on his 30th birthday. As he waited at the intersection, an unidentified vehicle pulled up closely alongside his car. Without warning, a suspect unleashed a barrage of bullets directly into Williams' vehicle, striking him multiple times on the left side of his body. Immediately following the deadly ambush, the suspect's car sped away, fleeing eastbound on 167th Street toward Interstate 57. Footage capturing the devastating daylight attack later circulated online. When officers arrived at the chaotic scene, they discovered an off-duty medical professional already desperately performing first aid on the critically injured 50-strong member. Emergency responders quickly took over and rushed Williams, who resided in Allsip, to Advocate Christ Medical Center. Despite all efforts to save his life, his injuries were simply too severe and he was pronounced dead. The targeted assassination was viewed as a massive loss for his collective. Oak Forest police are actively investigating the drive-by shooting as a homicide. As of now, no arrests have been announced and the shooters remain on the run. On April 4th, 2026, the sound of sudden gunfire pierced the late night air on the west side in the South Austin neighborhood. At 11:40 in the evening, Chicago police officers were patrolling near the 5100 block of West Chicago Avenue, close to LeClaire Avenue, when they heard loud noises ringing out through the streets. Rushing to the source of the gunfire, officers discovered a 34-year-old man lying unresponsive on the ground. The victim was identified as Xavier Riyles, known in the streets as Zay. Online community members pointed out that this location fell directly within the territory of the TBU collective. Riyles himself was a recognized and established member of the Wicked Town collective. The brutal attack appeared to have unfolded right outside a local business, with investigators later finding bullet holes shattered through a nearby storefront window. Riyles had been targeted and suffered a devastating gunshot wound to the head. Emergency responders arrived and quickly rushed the critically wounded Wicked Town member to Mount Sinai Hospital. Despite all life-saving efforts, his traumatic injuries proved to be too severe, and he was tragically pronounced dead. Harrison area detectives are actively investigating the fatal late-night shooting. As of now, the gunman remains completely unidentified, and Chicago police have reported no arrests. On April 1st, 2026, another tragic wave of violence hit the south side near the border of Inglewood and Greater Grand Crossing. 18-year-old Tyrese Smith, also identified by the medical examiner as Tyrese, was known heavily in the streets as Big Black. He was a recognized member of the OBN collective, specifically belonging to their younger generation clique known as Sav Block. Notably, his tragic passing marked the second major loss for the OBN collective in less than a week. That Wednesday, Smith was inside a gas station business on a block of West Marquette Road, an area noted by online community members to be close to Lamron territory. The situation turned deadly when a vehicle suddenly pulled up and 4 armed individuals exited. They relentlessly opened fire into the establishment, specifically targeting Smith. He was struck multiple times in the devastating barrage. Emergency responders arrived and quickly transported the critically wounded 18-year-old to a local hospital, but his injuries were too severe and he was pronounced dead shortly after. Leading up to the fatal ambush, rumors circulated that Smith had been embroiled in a heated, months-long feud with rival factions. According to details shared by the online community, on the very day of his murder, he reportedly engaged in a tense social media live stream where direct threats were made to drive through his neighborhood. Following his passing, rival factions immediately took to social media to relentlessly taunt his death. Though authorities have not confirmed their involvement, Chicago police are continuing their investigation into the coordinated attack. As of now, the 4 gunmen remain completely unidentified and no arrests have been made. On March 30th, 2026, a truly staggering and relentless display of daytime violence unfolded on the far south side in the West Pullman neighborhood. At approximately 11:55 in the morning, 26-year-old Jajouan Thigpin, known heavily in the streets as Marley, was walking on the 800 block of West 122nd Street near Halsted. Thigpin, who originally resided in the Garfield Park neighborhood on the west side, was a recognized and established member of the MBMG collective. Online community members noted that the specific location where he was walking was situated right near the border of the Kell City and Wugga World territories. As he made his way down the street, an unidentified assailant approached him and unleashed an absolute torrent of gunfire. The sheer magnitude of the daylight attack was devastating. Crime scene investigators later recovered nearly 90, specifically about 86, shell casings scattered across the bloody scene. Thigpin was targeted and struck multiple times throughout his body in a merciless barrage. Emergency responders rushed to the chaotic area, but the catastrophic injuries he sustained were insurmountable. He was tragically pronounced dead at the scene at exactly 12:04 in the afternoon. Area 2 detectives are actively investigating this massive execution-style shooting. As of now, the gunman remains completely unidentified, and Chicago police have reported no arrests in connection with the murder. On March 29, 2026, a deadly shooting unfolded in Evansville, Indiana, claiming the life of an individual with deep ties to Chicago street collectives. At approximately 9:40 in the morning, emergency dispatchers received a call reporting a shooting on the 1200 block of South Lincoln Park Drive. The incident occurred at the Neighbors Keeper Apartments, located in the city's Lorraine Park neighborhood. When Evansville Police Department officers arrived at the scene, they discovered Kashawn Almond deceased inside one of the apartments. Almond, known in the streets as Dada, was a recognized and established member of the OBN collective. While official police statements initially noted that there were no immediate arrests and that detectives were actively canvassing for witnesses and surveillance footage, The online community quickly provided a tragic and personal context to the murder. According to detailed reports circulating online, Almond was fatally shot by his own cousin following a dispute over a dice game that went terribly wrong. The tragic incident marked a significant loss for the OBN collective. The Evansville Police Department is continuing to investigate the homicide, seeking to officially bring justice to a fatal domestic dispute that ended in senseless violence. On March 25, 2026, a deadly daytime confrontation claimed a life on the south side in the Woodlawn neighborhood. At approximately 11:30 in the morning, 29-year-old Michael Ricks, widely known in the streets as Lil Mikey, was inside his vehicle near a gas station on the 6200 block of South Drexel Avenue. Ricks was a prominent face, a known rapper, and a highly established member of the Jarrow City Collective, who have recently come home after serving 14 years in jail. Online community members were quick to point out the chilling context of the location. The area fell directly within TYMB territory, and tragically, the shooting occurred at the exact same gas station where one of his friends had lost their life just the summer prior. As Rick sat in his car, a white Mercedes carrying two individuals pulled up alongside his vehicle. A tense and heated argument quickly erupted between Ricks and the occupants of the Mercedes. The verbal dispute escalated rapidly and turned fatal when one of the individuals inside the Mercedes produced a weapon, shooting Ricks directly in the chest. The shooters immediately fled the scene in their white vehicle, leaving Ricks critically wounded. Emergency responders arrived and rushed him to the University of Chicago Medical Center. But despite all medical efforts to save his life, his injuries were too severe and he was pronounced dead. In the immediate aftermath, an outpouring of grief flooded social media platforms as the community mourned what was described as a massive loss for Jarrow City. Area 1 detectives are actively investigating the fatal altercation. As of now, the two assailants remain unidentified and on the run, and Chicago police have reported no arrests. On March 24, 2026, a coordinated late-night attack claimed 2 lives on the south side in the Chatham neighborhood. At approximately 11:20 in the evening, 37-year-old Gerald Brown, known in the streets as G Thang or Diplomatic, was standing on the 7800 block of South Calumet Avenue. Brown was a highly established member of the F Dollar Collective, deeply tied to the community as the cousin of Mikado and the blood brother of Stavio. Online community members noted he was positioned directly within MTV territory at the time. While Brown was outside with another individual, a group of 5 unidentified people suddenly approached on foot. Without warning, a deadly barrage of gunfire erupted. Brown suffered a fatal gunshot wound to the chest and was tragically pronounced dead at the scene. The second victim was also struck multiple times and later died at a local hospital. Immediately following the ambush, the 5 attackers fled on foot towards 79th Street. The assassination was a massive loss for the F Dollar Collective. Area 2 detectives are actively investigating the double homicide, but as of now, the 5 suspects remain completely unidentified and on the run. On March 24th, 2026, a second devastating blow struck the F Dollar Collective on the very same day, this time in the Greater Grand Crossing neighborhood. At 6:53 in the evening, 38-year-old Anthony Robinson, known in the streets as Rusky or Buddha, was inside a residence on the 7400 block of South Rhodes Avenue. Online community members pointed out that this specific location fell within the territory of the Wugga World Collective. Inside the home, a deadly and isolated encounter unfolded, resulting in Robinson suffering a fatal gunshot wound to the head. Emergency responders arrived and rushed him to the University of Chicago Medical Center, but despite all medical efforts to save his life, he was ultimately pronounced dead. The timing of his murder created massive confusion and shock online because he passed away on the exact same day as fellow F Dollar member G Thang. Rumors initially swirled among his own circle that the two had died together in the same coordinated ambush. However, it was soon clarified to be a chilling coincidence. Robinson lost his life in a completely separate incident miles away. Furthermore, recent street reports have surfaced alleging that the fatal shot in the residence was actually fired by a female. Chicago police are continuing their investigation into the fatal indoor shooting. As of now, no one is in custody and the shooter remains at large. On March 22, 2026, a deadly drive-by shooting claimed a life on the west side in the North Lawndale neighborhood. At approximately 2:10 in the morning, 28-year-old Roy Kimbro, known in the streets simply as Roy, was on the 1300 block of South St. Louis Avenue. Online community members quickly noted that this specific location fell directly within his own territory, as Kimbro was a recognized member of the NDM collective. The late night calm was abruptly shattered when a vehicle pulled up to his location and unleashed a deadly barrage of bullets in a sudden drive-by attack. Kimbro, who resided on the 5600 block of South Marshfield Avenue, was fatally struck by the gunfire. Chicago police detectives are actively investigating the targeted neighborhood shooting. The vehicle managed to flee the scene into the night, and as of now, the shooter remains unidentified. On March 15, 2026, a deadly early morning shooting claimed a life on the south side in the South Shore neighborhood. At approximately 4 o'clock in the morning, 24-year-old Laafanjac Davenport, heavily known in the streets as Lil Pokey or G Fono, was standing on the 1900 block of East 72nd Place. Davenport, who resided on the 5700 block of South Damen Avenue, was a recognized member of the WB057 collective and known as an original member of the J Mac Boys clique. Online community members noted that the specific location where he was standing fell directly within the territory of the Ghetto World collective. The quiet of the early morning was abruptly shattered when gunfire erupted, and Davenport suffered a devastating gunshot wound to the chest and abdomen. Despite being critically wounded in the attack, he somehow managed to flee the chaotic scene and transport himself to Advocate Trinity Hospital. Despite his desperate efforts to seek medical help, his traumatic injuries proved to be too severe. After fighting for his life, he was tragically pronounced dead at 5:25 in the morning. Chicago police detectives are actively investigating the fatal early morning shooting. As of now, the gunman remains completely unidentified and no arrests have been made. On March 11, 2026, a brazen daytime shooting claimed a life on the west side in the Garfield Park neighborhood. At approximately 11:40 in the morning, 23-year-old Tashawn Khanic, known heavily in the streets as YRN Bari, was walking on the 4100 block of West Adams Street. Khanic was a known rapper and an established member of the Cuckoo Gang collective. Online community members noted that the specific location where he was walking fell directly within the territory of the HRYM collective. As Khanic made his way down the street, an unidentified assailant approached him on foot. Without warning, the gunman opened fire, unleashing a barrage of bullets that struck Khanic multiple times. Immediately following the deadly ambush, the shooter fled west on foot, escaping into the neighborhood. Emergency responders arrived and quickly rushed the critically wounded Cuckoo Gang member to Mount Sinai Hospital. Despite all medical efforts to save his life, his injuries were too severe and he was tragically pronounced dead. An autopsy conducted the following Thursday confirmed he died from multiple gunshot wounds. Area 4 detectives are actively investigating the fatal daytime attack. As of now, the shooter remains completely unidentified, and Chicago police have reported no arrests in connection with the murder. On March 9, 2026, a chilling late-night discovery revealed a fatal shooting on the south side in the Englewood neighborhood. At approximately 11:45 in the evening, police responded to a call at an apartment building on the 800 block of West 66th Street. Inside a hallway, they discovered 24-year-old Terrell Britain, known in the streets as Baby T, lying unresponsive. Britain, a known rapper and established member of the Mac Block Collective, was tragically killed directly within his own territory. He had suffered devastating point-blank gunshot wounds to his face and abdomen. Emergency responders arrived, but his catastrophic injuries were insurmountable, and he was pronounced dead at exactly 11:50. Authorities confirmed a weapon was recovered at the scene. The brutal reality of his murder immediately sparked dark speculation online. Rival factions, particularly members of the Low Life Collective, took to social media to mock the fallen rapper. Their taunts heavily featured the phrase "Backdoor K," fueling widespread street rumors that the Mac Block affiliate may have been tragically set up or betrayed by someone he trusted. Area 1 detectives are actively investigating the fatal hallway shooting. As of now, the shooter remains completely unidentified, and Chicago police have reported no arrests. On March 2, 2026, a grim late-night discovery revealed a fatal shooting on the far south side in the Roseland neighborhood. At approximately 9:55 in the evening, Chicago police officers responded to a residence on the 10,600 block of South Forest Avenue. Inside the home, they made a chilling discovery, finding 24-year-old Anthony Jackson lying unresponsive. Jackson, known heavily in the streets as Ping, was a recognized and established member of the Tay City Collective. Online community members were quick to point out the context of his location, noting that the home where he was found was situated directly within the territory of the DBC 10-7 Collective. Jackson, who resided on the 10,000 block of South Normal Avenue, had been brutally targeted, suffering devastating multiple gunshot wounds to his chest and abdomen. Emergency responders arrived at the scene, but his catastrophic injuries were insurmountable, and he was tragically pronounced dead without ever being transported to a hospital. Area 2 detectives are actively investigating the fatal indoor shooting. As of now, the circumstances leading up to the attack remain unclear. The shooter remains completely unidentified, and Chicago police have reported no arrests. And that is why you need to check out the complete archive on TopTrendReportTV.com, because when detectives hit dead ends, the full case file keeps tracking the timelines, the deleted posts, the faction maps, and the real story behind the violence. The police tape has been taken down and the crime scenes have been washed away, but the echoes of these 3 months continue to ring through the streets as detectives hit dead ends and rival factions plot their next moves. The tragic tally from this spring serves as a grim reminder. In these neighborhoods, the cycle of violence never truly sleeps.